Good morning, 5th graders. Welcome back to the Valley View School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. We are going to continue talking about our fantasy stories today, and today we are going to talk about how to think about your characters metaphorically.
That's a really big
word, but we are going to talk about it today. And a metaphor is, that kind of goes along with the lesson we recently had about similes and metaphors. So a metaphor is taking two things that are not alike and comparing them. So we're going to talk more about that. Have you ever seen a really old map, like hundreds of years old?
I heard them answer.
No?
Yeah, I heard everybody said yes.
Okay, good. So if you look at really old maps, a lot of times they look a lot different than they do if you look at a map like here at school or in social studies class if you look today. Really old maps had some kind of strange things and pictures and drawings on them. We're going to look at some of those. So this is an example of a very old map from, I believe, 1503, so over 500 years ago. And on this map, we can see some islands, see some water, but you can also, if you look really closely, you can see some dragons or serpents. And when you see those types of things on these really old maps, it means here be dragons, or in Latin, hic sunt dracones. Hopefully I said that correctly. So here be dragons means there's danger there. So when people would make these old maps, if they came across an area where it's rough water or dangerous or something unknown, they would put a dragon there to let people know.
And just to insert real quick, this makes me think of like the Bermuda Triangle. It's a place where lots of planes have crashed and lots of boats have sank. So we call it the Bermuda Triangle, and we show coordinates on our maps these days. 500, 600 years ago, like this right here, this big red serpent that's taking the ship down, they saw that as a place where many ships sunk and had problems. That's an old-time Bermuda Triangle.
So today we're going to talk about and learn that in fantasy stories, in these wonderful books you are reading, characters often face different kinds of dragons. And those dragons can be literal, like real dragons, or they can be metaphorical dragons, which the dragon symbolizes a different challenge or problem that that character needs to overcome. So we're going to get back to the Paper Bag Princess today, and I know some of you may have already listened to this read aloud, but we're going to talk a little more about it, and first we are going to listen to the story. And in this book, Elizabeth actually faces a dragon, but we're going to see what other problems she has to overcome as well.
Available in the local library. The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munsch and Michael Marchenko. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find that was not burned was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left a trail of burned forests and horses' bones. Finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow. He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. Elizabeth grabbed the knocker and banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Go away! I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." "Wait," shouted Elizabeth. "Is it true that you are the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world?" "Yes," said the dragon. "Is it true," said Elizabeth, "that you can burn up 10 forests with your fiery breath?" "Oh, yes," said the dragon, and he took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire that he burned up 50 forests. "Fantastic," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire that he burned up 100 forests. "Magnificent," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath, but this time nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire left to cook a meatball. Elizabeth said, "Dragon, is it true that you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds?" "Why, yes," said the dragon, and jumped up and flew all the way around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back, but Elizabeth shouted, "Fantastic, do it again!" So the dragon jumped up and flew around the whole world in just 20 seconds. When he got back, he was too tired to talk, and he lay down and went straight to sleep. Elizabeth whispered very softly, "Hey, dragon!" The dragon didn't move at all. She lifted up the dragon's ear and put her head right inside. She shouted as loud as she could, "Hey, dragon!" The dragon was so tired he didn't even move. Elizabeth walked right over the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Prince Ronald. He looked at her and said, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes. Your hair is all tangled and you are wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you are dressed like a real princess." "Ronald," said Elizabeth, "your clothes are really pretty and your hair is very neat. You look like a real prince, but you are bum." They didn't get married after all. Did you like the book?
All right, so we just heard the paper bag princess, and we know that Elizabeth actually faced a real dragon. But what other problems or dragons did she face? What else did she have to overcome? I want you to think for a minute. Can you hear them?
They're thinking.
Thinking.
Give them a minute. Think more. Okay.
So one dragon that Elizabeth had to overcome was Ronald, Prince Ronald. Here's a quote of something that he said to her in that story. He says, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes. Your hair is all tangled. You're wearing a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you are dressed like a real princess." Wow. That I wouldn't expect a prince to talk that way. So what did Elizabeth really have to overcome in this story? She had to overcome the dragon, but also she had to kind of get over Prince Ronald. She had to say, "I don't need you. You're cruel. You're not nice to me." So that was her metaphorical dragon in this story.
Miss Stollenberg, I feel like she had to shake it off.
She had to shake Prince Ronald
Go
off.
Ronald.
Did you get rid of him? Yeah, shake
whatever.
you off.
Okay, I'll stop dancing now.
No,
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So
Got
if
excited.
we were going to draw a medieval map about this story, I would probably draw Elizabeth and then I would draw a cave with a door, and I would draw a dragon in that door, and I would name the dragon Prince Ronald, because that's what Elizabeth has to overcome. I would just call him a dragon. Shake him off. So sometimes when you are reading your fantasy stories, the dragons that your characters will face, sometimes there'll be troubles, problems in the plot of the story. Sometimes these troubles will be things they have no control over. Other times, these troubles or problems will be within the character themselves. It's like a character trait, a flaw that that character has to overcome. Maybe they need to be more brave or be more outgoing. Something that they need in their life to overcome. Maybe they need to get rid of a mean person in their life. They need to do something to continue on their quest, their journey, and that could also be their metaphorical dragon.
You know, Miss Stallenwerk, I think about Harry Potter and how he was basically orphaned as a young baby. He looks like he's like 1 in that first movie.
Yep.
But basically, so his metaphorical dragon is getting over the loss of his parents and still fulfilling and living a good life and becoming the hero that he does become in the series. The loss of his family was one of his metaphorical dragons.
Right, I completely agree with you, Mrs. Brzezinski. So 5th graders, today you learned to think metaphorically about dragons characters face. They might face real dragons, but they have those metaphorical dragons as well, those other things they need to overcome. You also learned that dragons could be troubles that characters have no control over, or they can be troubles within themselves that they can work to overcome. You also learned to think about how facing dragons could relate to the theme. So if we think about Harry Potter, and if Harry has to overcome that loss of his family, we could say a theme of Harry Potter is that sometimes in life you have to keep going despite your beginnings in life or despite your circumstances. Even if bad things happen, you have to keep working and keep pushing through.
Keep persevering through life's challenges, just like Harry.
So 5th graders, your homework for today is to think about your fantasy stories and see if you notice any here be dragon moments that you could write about. And as you're doing this in your book club's Google Doc, I want you to also be sure that you are reading what your group members write as well. Because maybe someone in your group had a really great point that you could add to. Your group members might write something that you hadn't even thought of. So make sure that you're adding your thoughts, but you're reading your group members' thoughts as well. And I want to show you an example of something a way that you could do this work. This is metaphorical dragons from the Narnia series. So this person drew a table. So they have the 4 characters, Lucy, Susan, Edmund, and Peter, and then listed what their dragons are, what they're trying to overcome. So Lucy, an example, her siblings don't believe her, and she's the youngest or the smallest child. That's something she has to overcome. Susan, she's very motherly. She wants to protect her siblings. And then we have White Witch with a question mark there. Edmund, he joined the White Witch, so he has to overcome that problem, and getting ambushed. And Peter, he has to overcome failing his siblings, that feeling of failure, and losing his family and friends. So you could set up a table like this. You could do a list. You could write sentence, paragraph form. However you want to think about those here be dragon moments in your fantasy story.
And one thing, guys, in your Google Doc and in your responses too, you're not copying your friends if you get ideas from them and put it in your own words. If we were having a conversation and I was bouncing off of my book club, something I say after Miss Stallenwerk says it, I'm just adding to what she's saying. That's not copying. So don't feel like if you're like, oh, I noticed that one of the problems is that Harry has lost his parents. You just say it differently if someone else said that too. It's just a different way of working with each other. That's how you need to think about it. Things just look a little different, but it's not copying.
Right. And I've even seen on my group Google pages, students write after another person in a different color, like, hey, I agree.
Yeah.
And then they add right on. So you know that you're reading each other's responses, which is awesome. Keep it up.
I don't know if there's a symbol for this. My class does this all the time. Feel ya? Agree with you?
Awesome.
Sure, one of you knows. Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so 5th graders, you know what your homework is. It's going to be posted in your Google Doc. Make sure you do a Newsella article. I love it when you guys text me or email me and let me know what you got on your article. That just shows me that you're holding yourself accountable, which I will say, now that we're toward the end of week 2, it's easier to start getting lazy about stuff. So make sure that you are structuring your day so that you are doing, if your job is to do the learning, our job is to do the teaching. Make sure we're all still doing our job. So hold yourself accountable for that Newsella article. Try to get 3 out of 4. Make sure you're filling in your reading log. I know some of you literally probably said, like, just when I said that, oh, I don't need to do my reading log. Yes, you do.
You do.
Yes, you do. Okay? So, Newsella article, reading log, book response. You've got this. Happy Thursday. We are starting tomorrow's lesson discussing what the checkpoint looks like that we assigned yesterday. So if you have not turned in your checkpoint to your teacher, the phrase of, I haven't gotten to that yet, that's not acceptable. Do that first if you need to. One theme in the song, Shake It Off, is, I think this because. Another theme in the song is, and I think this because. Even if you get it wrong, you're still showing effort and we can help you set that next step. But you've got to do the first step before we can reply to you. So guys, have a wonderful afternoon. Shake it off, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, 5th graders.